Welcome to Gaming in the Basement with RockAGoth. Today I'm hanging out with TimberBrick, but before we get into it, I wonder who we're sponsored by this week. That classic Oregon Trail has been making comeback after comeback. Did you know that it was created in 1971? This intense game had just been overhauled and modernized, presenting Oregon Trail VR. Get close up and personal with dysentery, smallpox, measles, mumps, and influenza. See your death and the death of your caravan happen in real time. Ever wonder what it's like to get crushed by a wagon wheel? Well, wonder no more. This VR experience is said to be so realistic, it's been banned in multiple countries. Pick up your copy today. I don't know who needs to see dysentery, but I guess there's a game for everyone. It sounds really graphic. Anyway, let's just get started. I don't know these sponsors. So could you give me a brief general introduction about who you are?
Sure. I'm Tim, gamertag TimberBrick. I am 37 now, and I have been into gaming for pretty much my whole life. I mean, I may be a millennial and grown up with not a lot of technology at the beginning of my life, but that doesn't mean that gaming ever was not a present thing for me. I've always loved gaming. I actually am an aerospace mechanical engineer working for the Boeing company in California, and just try to be a generally social person. I'm pretty extroverted, and I just love hanging out with people and gaming.
Oh, that's cool. I'm in Washington State and we always see like pieces of planes being driven by and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I used to actually work up in Washington. Worked up there for a while before I moved back down to California.
Oh, wow, cool. I bet the weather way better down there.
Why I moved. It's
Yeah.
why I left Seattle. I couldn't stand over
Yeah.
rain.
Yeah. I bet that California weather's nice. So you said that you've been gaming since you've been a child, right? Do you remember like
Yeah.
where you started? Like what was your first console? What are your first games?
Oh man. So my very first game that I remember playing was Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? It was on my dad's basically IBM. I think it was an IBM 5151. It might have been an earlier model. I don't remember exactly which computer it was. I just remember it was a black and yellow computer. It had a dot matrix printer, which woke up half of the damn house, and actually half the damn apartment building whenever he ran that printer. And my parents were very much wanting the games that I played, at least early on, to be somewhat educational. And so I got big time into Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego because it was a fun game. It had a level of mystery and interactivity, and it gave you a lot of interesting kind of nation questions. So, it was always trying to teach you about flags and capitals and, different things like that. And so that kind of started me on my gaming path. And then I moved into the Oregon Trail games or game, which was obviously always a big one. Don't forget kids, dysentery will always get you. And that was kind of my first gaming setup. Eventually I moved into the NES system where I actually I was given it by my brother who at the time he was over the Nintendo system because he had moved on to, I think it was Sega Genesis was his next system. So I probably got the Nintendo in like the early 90s when the Genesis came out. My brother phased out the NES and gave it to me. And so, you know, Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt and Uncle Fester's Quest and all of that stuff was kind of the first systems I had. My parents had an old Atari 2600 in our country house that we had up in Massachusetts, which we would go to during the summers, and I would play that as well. And God knows I don't remember any of the games from that, but it's probably still there, and I need to go grab it. So yeah, I mean, it's been pretty present in my life for most of my life. It was always a good release, a good way to get away from, maybe some stuff that was going on with school or stuff that I didn't want to deal with, and it was just kind of a nice escape.
So you mentioned that you feel games are an escape. How have they been an escape for you? And are there any games that stand out in your mind as being an escape to you at that particular time in your life?
Yeah, so for a lot of times, I mean, kids who grew up in the 90s, I mean, I assume that you have the same mentality, looked at it with the 90s did not feel as bad as they do as days do today. That probably has a lot to do with the fact that TV, the news doesn't play as much a role as it did back then. Like there were news stories and you heard about stuff, but it didn't feel like it was all doom and gloom 90, you know, every day, all day, like it does feel like it feels today. And of course, since the internet wasn't as used, it also didn't hit you from every possible angle. You either watched the news on TV and that was it. So for the most part, it didn't feel like there was bad day. Like there was, it didn't feel like it was a horrible decade. Obviously, there was still a lot of horrible stuff going on and there was a lot of bad stuff in the world. But as a kid growing up, you felt kind of insulated from a lot of that stuff and you were able to just kind of enjoy your early years. So when I say escape, it wasn't to like necessarily run away from things that were troubling or terrifying. It was more just I don't want to focus on school today. So I'm gonna ditch all my schoolwork and sit here and play video games for 8 hours. And so that was the kind of escape that I'm kind of referring to. Or you played with your friends and you had friends over and you all played like a bunch of games and one person would play and everybody else would watch and cheer them on. I mean, really, that was like the earliest version of Twitch where everyone would just sit around your console and watch one person play. But yeah, so like when it comes to games, I think the biggest thing for me was always I loved the Mario series. The Mario series was always one that I kind of got enveloped in. I would always be playing Duck Hunt or just Super Mario Brothers.
Was that your first Mario game?
Oh yeah. Yeah, my first Mario game was Super Mario Brothers. The original Super Mario Brothers with Duck Hunt. That was my first game. My first
Nice.
Mario game.
All
I
right,
think that
Ellie.
was the first Mario game ever.
You were talking about how in the old days, Twitch was kinda like your version of Twitch was people coming over and you playing games together. So, what was your first kinda, like, IRL co-op game that you've played? And then what was your, like, first actual, like, online co-op game?
First in real life co-op game. I wanna say that the two-player Mario Brothers was kind of my first co-op game, like,
Mm,
where you both kind of it was funny because it was a co-op without being co-op, because you
yeah.
weren't both in the game at the same time, like, you took turns. If one person died, the other person got a chance to run the world, and then it kinda went back and forth. So it's kind of funny because I say co-op, but that really wasn't a co-op.
Uh,
If I'm thinking, like, actual in-game co-ops, oh, that probably takes me quite a ways out from where I started. I wanna say maybe the original Smash Brothers? But that's not even a co-op either, is it?
no, I
Oh,
don't
no,
think
Contra. Contra was my first co-op. Yeah, now
I
that I think about it, I was like, "Wait, Contra was a co-op because you both played at the same time."
I don't remember. I think I was just playing, like, one-player mode, so I didn't know.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and that was a lot of mine too. I didn't necessarily game a huge amount with other people, but there were times where we did. But I think that had a lot to do with the fact that there was just so few multiplayer games coming out because it was really difficult to set it up for one person, let alone two, in those
Yeah,
early days of gaming.
yeah. I mean, I used to get games that I could play with my sister, but she didn't really play all that much.
Yeah, I was I was the youngest of 3. My brother was too cool for me at the time because he was in, like, high school or middle school when I was young, so I didn't really get a chance to hang out with him too much, and my sister wasn't too much of a video gamer anyway. She
Yeah.
still isn't, and so I was kind of on my own for most of that. Not that I'm saying that was a bad thing. I still enjoyed my gaming, and I still had plenty of friends who gamed, but it just, I guess I had a similar experience to you.
So I'm gonna take it back to something you said earlier. You were talking about Carmen Sandiego and Oregon Trail. Do you think there are any games out there that are currently like those games that are kind of like educational and fun?
If there are, they are few and far between these days. I can't think of many anymore that have that level of history in them. I feel like a lot of the games now do this alternative history kind of thing, but it's not like real, like global history. Like there's not a lot of that much anymore. They have like aspects of it in games like Civilizations where they talk about how tech has advanced some, but they're kind of like little snippets. As for like brain expanding kind of games like Carbon San Diego was, where you get to know countries and flags and capitals and local cuisines and things like that. No, I don't know of many anymore these days like that. They're kind of a different breed. Games were so commonly used back in those early days as kind of teaching aids, whereas games have become now more of a matter of trying to just distract, I feel.
I almost feel like games like that were kind of tricking you into learning, but you didn't know about it.
That's I think that's how they really got a lot of us hooked early on because it was something that our parents could agree with because it was educational, but it was also something that you could enjoy yourself because it was something that was different and new at the time. And so I feel like it kind of fed both worlds. Whereas now the games are just feel like a lot of times the games these days are just like brain melding.
So, why do you think those type of games were so successful, like Carmen Sandiego and Oregon Trail? How did they capture your attention and to the point where you don't know that you're actually learning something and you're having fun?
Well, interestingly enough, for me, I don't think it was the fact that I was being distracted about the fact that I was learning. I actually kind of, being that I grew up in more of an educated household, my parents were both teachers. I kind of was in with the whole learning. I didn't mind learning. And so, like, Carmen San Diego was a big game for me because I actually enjoyed the idea of learning about all the different countries and what they look like in a 2D world and their flags and all that kind of stuff. I thought that was a lot of fun. I actually just genuinely enjoyed learning about other countries. I think for a lot of people, it was successful because it was just something so different from what we were used to. Because, you know, we didn't there was very little in ways of technology back then. So being able to kind of explore a world that didn't exist was this novel experience that a lot of people just didn't have. And so it was kind of enthralling based on that. And I think a lot of parents were okay with it for exactly what I said because they didn't have to it wasn't like this game was just taking away days of their lives. It was actually giving them some kind of useful knowledge moving forward.
So, are you primarily a PC or console gamer?
Yeah, these days I'm mainly PC. I have the consoles. I have the Xbox. I have the new Xbox Series X or whatever the newest one is. And I have some games for it, but I find that I enjoy being in my office with my gaming computer. I think a lot of it does have to do with the fact that my wife, who is not a gamer, mainly out of necessity, she wants to watch TV and we only have one TV. So having the console hooked up in the living room keeps me from playing the console of a sort. So I think that's the biggest reason I don't console. There's a lot of great games on console that I like, and I just haven't played them or haven't gotten into them. Like I have, what is it? Cyberpunk, which I really kind of want to get back into, even though it's got a lot of problems. I still want to try it. And then I still want to finish Jedi Fallen Order. And there's a lot of games that I know that I can get for the PC, but I don't want to buy them twice.
How did you feel about the Xbox 360?
I actually didn't mind it. I thought it was I thought it was a good advancement. I never I kind of never had a problem with either Xbox or PS. I know there was that whole war between the two systems. I thought both of them had their own merits. I really liked the Halo series, so I guess I did steer more toward the Xbox games, but like the PC, the PS4 and PS3, I mean, you can't deny the PS3 was one of the best-selling consoles of all time. Obviously behind the Super Nintendo or the Nintendo Entertainment System, but it was still, a great system and there's been a lot of great games for them. Assassin's Creed was a big one for me for the PS series, so I never really had that split where some people either had one or the other. I always tried to get both. I played a lot of like sports games on the 360, so I had those games. There was some racing games I would play on the 360. I mean I still have most of my games. I would just need to look them up, but like I have a bunch of them. I was actually apparently I'm one of the only people I've ever heard of that beat the red ring of death. Not in the sense that I didn't get it. I got the red ring, but I just turned my console off, put it on the shelf for like a year, and then when I plugged it back in, it just turned on no problem.
That's crazy.
And I don't know how. I to this day, I have no clue how that worked, but I beat the red ring and I can take that to the grave.
I've never heard of that happening before.
I had neither.
But also, like, at the time, people wanted to play it, so putting it away for, like, a year, that probably would have been kinda devastating.
Luckily, I had the PS3, so I had that to entertain me, so I didn't have to
Uh,
worry about it.
so what types of games do you play?
It seems like there's not many games I don't play. I stick a lot with, like, open world builders. I'm big on, like, games that allow me to use imagination and kind of explore. Those are the big kind of games I like. I do love me some good RPGs. I mentioned to someone the other day that Stardew Valley is a great game that I really enjoy playing. And that's not really a building game necessarily. It is an RPG all at the same time as it is a building game. So I don't know. But then again, I've also played shooters more recently. I've been getting into some shooters with friends because I steered away from shooters just because there were so many people out there that were so much better than me, and I had absolutely zero desire to try to be one of the best. And so whenever a shooter came up, I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm okay. I'll pass." And then a friend couple friends more recently were like, "Oh, you should just come play with us. We're just gonna have some fun." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know." And then I finally picked them up. Did enjoy just playing with friends and, just not caring about how good you are. So I guess I'd play some shooters, some open worlds, some RPGs. What else have I played? I kind of play a little bit of everything. Survivals. I love survivals, strategy games like Civilizations. If it's pretty much if it's a game, I'll play it. I really don't have a bias one way or another.
Okay. So you mentioned, like, you just got into FPS games, and I kinda did too. I was never, like, a first-person shooter type person, but I think it's for the same reasons that you say, like, it's a great way to, like, socialize.
Yeah, it's a great way to, like, have some fun with some friends. And, it doesn't matter how good you are or how much you do, if as long as everyone's having fun, that's all that matters. And so that's kind of been the reason why I've been more willing to do that, because the people I've been playing with are just out to just generally just have fun.
Okay, yeah, I feel like the people you play with makes a really big difference, like, how much you like the game or how much fun you're having.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
So what FPS games have you been playing?
So I started with Apex with some friends, two gamers that are friends of mine, Lady Baxter Gaming and Miss P3. They kind of really wanted me to get into to Apex, so that kind of opened the floodgates of a sort. I don't play it as much anymore because it's a little too intense for me at times.
Mhm.
I've been also picking up some Fortnite, even though I promised myself I would never play Fortnite
Okay.
because another couple of friends, different friends who were like, "Oh, you should come play with us," and then and I was like, "All right, fine, whatever." Just to stop them from nagging me, I went and played. And it's okay. It's a fun game, but I don't see myself playing it day, night, you know? So, I mean, those are the 2 big ones that I've been playing lately. Actually, those are really the only 2 I've been playing lately, if I play them at all.
So how did you come up with your name?
Huh. It's actually a pretty simple story. My wife, who is always a big supporter for me, I love her to death for it. She she knows that I game, and she always, watches me game sometimes. She loves watching me play Witcher. We were sitting on the couch one day and I was playing something. I don't even remember what I was playing. And she says, her sister had just started doing some Twitch streaming, and so for other things. And she was like, why don't you game online? And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, why don't you like do the streaming thing like my sister's doing? And I was like, I don't know. I just never thought about getting into it. I don't know what I'd have to do to get set up. And she was like, well, you should do that because you're going to game anyway. So might as well do it online and maybe you could, meet some people or do some stuff. And I was like, yeah. I was like, okay, that makes sense. And then when we started talking about that, I was like, I wouldn't even know what to call my channel. And we just kind of started throwing stuff around. And she's like, well, your name is Tim and you and she was just like, connecting the fact that I wore a lot of flannel or I wear a lot of flannel. So she kind of came up with the whole lumberjack thing, hence the reason Timber, because she likes to come up with a lot of like goofy and weird names. And then she said, and you also really like playing with Legos. So why not, something like TimberBrick? And I was like, okay. And the name just stuck and I just went with it.
Now that you explained where it came from, it has a whole new meaning.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the whole reason behind it is just the marriage of the way I dress, my name, and one of my favorite hobbies.
I love Legos too, by the way, and we're going to get back to that. But you had mentioned that you were recently married. So, congratulations, first of all. I was wondering, do you think video games have had some sort of influence over your relationship?
It's interesting. I think with every streamer that I've talked to that have spouses, there is always this interesting kind of dichotomy that plays out. It feels like at the beginning of your relationship or at the beginning of your Twitch streaming with your marriage, there's always this expectation that it's not going to change your life enough that there's going to be a major problem with being able to spend time with them and do streaming. And my wife has at times been a little frustrated with the fact that I stream as much as I do, or in her opinion, what seems like as much as I do. And she's had some we've had instances where where she's been upset about the fact that she feels I stream too much. And I, kind of tell her, I was like, I don't stream that much at all. And there is a little bit of tension, at least at the beginning there was. And I feel like these days, as long as I can set some kind of a schedule, or if I can figure out how to do the stream in such a way that it still allows us to have a relationship, that's really important. And so, like last night, I had a bunch of people who wanted me to play games with them, but I wanted to spend time with my wife because I didn't get to see her, pretty much all day on Sunday because she was working. And so it's really just a matter of trying to find that healthy balance between spending time with your spouse, not ignoring them, but also gaming. And so it's been a tricky thing to have to try to balance for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that 100%. Like, I think that's one thing that you don't know about. There's a lot of things you don't know about it until you start streaming, but that's a big one is finding balance between your personal life and your streaming life, and they intersect a lot. Especially,
Yeah.
like, I feel like streaming is not just about streaming.
Yeah.
You have networking. You probably belong to, like, 20 billion Discords. Like, you have a relationship with your, streaming buddies. It's a lot, and it can be a lot, and it can engulf your entire life.
Oh yeah, easily. Like it's become more than just a stream thing. It's become more of a lifestyle in a way, in a lot of ways. And so it's been very difficult to try to strike that balance effectively sometimes. I've been working on it more and more, but it still becomes very difficult at times. And I feel like it's gotten better or it's getting better, but it's still taking some time and it's still taking some effort on both sides.
Do you think, like, if you could pick a game for her, I don't know, I know she doesn't play games, but I feel like there's a game out there for everybody, you just need to pick the right one. Like, if you could pick a game for her, which game would you pick?
Here's the thing about her. It's not that she doesn't like gaming. She loves gaming. Her problem is she has an addictive style personality when it comes to games, where if she plays, she will not stop playing until she's done. And that's just the way she has to play her games.
Mhm.
So I could pick a bunch of games that she could play. The problem is that she would pretty much avoid eating, sleeping, going to work as much as she could to game as much as she could until she was done with the game. That's just her style of gaming. So that's
Okay.
really the biggest reason that she doesn't game.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's pretty intense.
Yeah, she's got a very addictive personality when it comes to games. She's told me about days in the past where she's has gamed and yeah, she pretty much does nothing but game when she does game. She
Yeah.
does enjoy she does enjoy watching me play The Witcher, and I've thought about jumping back into my Witcher game so that and on stream so that she can like spend time with me. But more about spending time with me on stream as it is right now. She'll come in and make guest appearances while I'm playing, or we'll do some of our marriage bickering, which is just fun chat stuff. It has nothing to do, we're not actually bickering on screen. It's just a lot of like content of a sort. Or she'll
Yeah.
come and sit with me while I'm gaming and we'll do stuff like that.
Yeah. Witcher was a great game. Like, which ones have you played?
Honestly, I only picked up 3. And so I'm kind of God, I don't even know where I am in 3, but I'm somewhere in the middle of 3, and that's the thing that I would have to go back to first before I did anything else, because my wife would want me to go back to 3 to finish that up first.
How did you feel about Gwent?
I could take it or leave it. I mean, it's an interesting game. It's got interesting dynamics, but I wasn't, like, engulfed in the idea of playing it every time. Like, I know a lot of people who basically just play Gwent, and I know that there's now even, I think, an app that you can just play Gwent.
So how long have you been into Legos?
Uh, the womb?
You were building stuff in your mom's womb?
Pretty sure I was pretty sure I was trying to rearrange stuff in my mother's womb. Yeah. No, seriously, like Legos was always one of those building systems that I played since I was a child. I've been playing with Legos probably since I was like 2 or 3, probably if I were to guess.
Do you remember when they started coming out with the sets?
I remember the earlier style Legos was just really a matter of pour a bunch of bricks in front of me and let me build whatever the hell I wanted to build. Like that was kind of my earliest memories with the Legos. And this was before like Duplos. So I was playing with the little bricks back before you had like the big bricks that the kids couldn't swallow. So
Yeah.
probably swallowed a few Lego bricks in my day as well. But yeah, no, so I remember when they came out with the sets in the early 90s, the Space System sets and the Wild West sets, and they were very nondescript. They were more just genre based and less targeted. And so I used to love playing with those stuff. I still got a lot of the Wild West sets. I remember begging my parents to buy me sets that came out later in the 90s or mid 90s. Oh, I want the Wild West fort. I just want the Wild West fort. It's so awesome. I just want it. And I would just beg them and eventually they got it for me, but Legos were always something that I enjoyed for as long as I can remember. It was pretty much gaming and Legos was my whole life.
So what kind of sets do you have now?
Oh God. How much time do we have? I have more Legos than I care to remember. I've got either
Or you
4
can
or
talk about the
5.
more recent ones. I don't know what kind of can of worms I was just gonna open.
You
Not
opened a can of
for
worms that I could go on for another hour talking about. The biggest things I collect right now is I've got the Harry Potter Legos, the ones that they've come out with in the last couple of years. I've started collecting that series of Lego sets. I love all of those sets. I think they're wonderful. I've got some of the architecture sets, Paris style sets, small and big. I've got White House and God, I can't. I'm looking around my room just thinking about it. I've started collecting, or I have the Lego modulars, the buildings that you can like connect and make cities out of. Actually, did funnily enough get the original Nintendo Lego set that they have.
have.
He created a Lego set that's like vintage gaming, and it's an original Nintendo Entertainment System with with an old screen that you can move, and it shows the original Mario running through the world, and it's one of the sets that they have, and I absolutely needed to get it because it was both Lego and it threw me back to my vintage gaming time.
Yeah, I have a few, like, video game, like, Lego sets too. My husband just got me the Atari one, so I've been working on building that. The NES was really cool because you could put the game cartridge in and, like, push it down and then, like, push it back up. They did a really good job with it.
Did a fantastic job with it. I was so happy with how it came out, and so it's actually sitting in my office. It's kind of, there was a point when I was starting to pack stuff up because in my stream there was a whole shelf behind me with a whole bunch of Lego sets, and I wanted to have a more clean background when I do streaming. And so I took apart a lot of my Lego sets, and as I was taking them apart, I realized that the places I wanted to put the stuff that I had on the shelf was starting to dwindle, so I had to kind of be selective about what I kept up. And I just could not bring myself to breaking down the Nintendo set. Like I was just like, for me, there was something about having it up in my office while I'm streaming and doing stuff with video games that just was like, I need to keep that up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that would be hard for me too. Seen that show on Hulu. I think it's with Will Arnett. It's like some Lego show where people like build like crazy Lego models and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Or
Lego
well,
Masters.
yeah,
I have don't have a good reason as to why I haven't watched it. It's just hasn't been on my radar. Every time someone mentions it, I think about, man, I actually should go watch that show. And then like promptly 20 minutes later, I completely forget about the fact that it exists. And
yeah,
so
same.
yeah, I do need to sit down and watch it. I know they're in like season 5 or something, so I've got quite a bit of back episodes to watch. But
Yeah,
it is an interesting show and it's got a great premise. And so I definitely need to explore that for sure.
same here. Keep seeing it, and I'm like, oh, I'll watch that later, and I just haven't done it yet. So, how would you describe your streaming style?
My streaming style is kind of really I tend to be very kind of relaxed and goofy and kind of funny and I tend to be very I tend to be the kind of gamer that wants to just have fun and wants to give an air of fun. I know there's a lot of streamers who are very dedicated to, oh, I want to be the best in my game. I want people to see that I'm awesome at this and I want to do all of these videos of me of showing me doing awesome and cool things. Great for those people. That has never been the kind of gamer I am. I'm always the kind of gamer that wants to just relax, hang out, have some chats with people, play some fun games, but also get weird and stupid and just kind of laugh and have a good time. Like for me, if you walk away from my stream having laughed a bunch and with a smile on your face, feeling like your day's a little better because of it, that I consider that a win. I don't care how many people watch me. I don't care how much I make in ad revenue. I don't give a crap about any of that. As long as I'm making your life a little better in a day, that's all I care about.
You spoke a bit about this before, and could you go a little bit more in depth about your streaming journey?
Come back next week for the conclusion of my conversation with TimberBrick. If you're not following him already, head over to Twitch and give him a follow or stop in for a visit. My music today was by DJ Kern. Check her out on SoundCloud. Next week is the final episode for season 1 of Gaming in the Basement with RockAGoth. Thank you so much again for always listening and sharing, and I hope you've been enjoying it as much as I've been making them, like being able to interview people. I don't think I would have been able to do this without any of you guys. So thanks again. If you're somebody who's new, who's just tuning in, thank you so much for giving my podcast a chance. I mean, I know there's hundreds out there. Gaming has always been a passion of mine, and I just appreciate you all being a part of it. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day and keep gaming.
That was my first game, my first
Nice.
Mario game.
All
I
right,
think that was the first Mario game ever.
there was another one, I thought. I
Before
don't know
that,
what it's called though.
there might have been an earlier version, but it wasn't Mario. He might have made an appearance where it was like he was in the game or he was being tested. I don't know. You're probably right. I don't know that much about that.
Yeah, it was like you're like in this room, and then these all of the like the monsters and the ducks and stuff come out of these pipes, and sometimes fireballs.
Donkey Kong.
That Donkey Kong?
Oh.
And then they have the like the little POW in the middle. I played it when I
No,
was
no, no,
playing
yeah, no, that was part of Mario Brothers. That was part of the original Mario Brothers.
Was it? Because I have the
Yeah,
original Brothers on NES. That's not part of the cartridge that I have, and I have the one with Duck Hunt and
pretty sure the two-player version was. If you played the two-player version, you could do either the campaign as two-player or you could do this like puzzle where like you and Luigi were running off the map and like you had to hit power-ups and you had to kill things. It was almost like a version of like Pac-Man. I know if it's not on that, then I remember the one you're talking about.
yeah, yeah. I don't know what it is or what it's called, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's
But
the
his first appearance was in Donkey Kong with the barrels where he's throwing barrels off the edge of the
okay.
yeah, that was his original appearance now that you mentioned it. But like
Yeah.
Mario's first game that I know of as a Mario game was Super Mario Brothers.
All right. I'm sure
Uh,
somebody's gonna tell us.
yeah, probably. Yeah.
Somebody's gonna let us know what it is.